Although it's quite a common condition, the issue of hair loss can be a source of great distress, and for some, this can lead to a number of psychological problems, including poor self-esteem and heightened self-consciousness. There are many types of hair loss with different symptoms and causes. I'm nia.fisher, and in this video, I'm joined by 4 wonderful men, each with their own experiences. Together, we're discussing this subject and just some of the many ways it can impact those affected by it. Welcome to Fishing for the Truth.
This is my truth. Tell me the truth. Tell me my truth. Tell me what the truth feels like. This is my truth.
Hello, welcome. I am joined today, as I said in my introduction, by these 4 incredible men, all lovely people who I'm very proud to know, who all share a common theme or a common experience, which is hair loss, but their stories are very, very different. So we've got Mark, we've got Tom, we've got Alim, and at the end we've got Sandy. They're going to share their story and we're going to discuss it, talk about it, and just get it out in the open, because I'm not entirely sure that this is something that men tend to talk about an awful lot. I don't know how you guys feel about that. Let's start with Mark. What's your story?
I started losing my hair when I was about 20. Well, I think I started losing it here actually earlier, but I always felt like it was a part of my hairline, so maybe I didn't notice. But I started losing my hair here when I was about 23. And I remember the first time I noticed it, I remember it was in the CCTV of a shop, you know, in the CCTV is all over the place.
Yeah.
I remember looking up at the screen and seeing a shot of me from behind and going, oh my god, is that my hair? It was. I was on a date as well, so it really ruined the date. So that's when I started to notice it. And then, I mean, I guess it didn't go really quickly, but sort of quite consistently over the next 10 years it started to go more and more and more. And then last year, I guess this time last year? I don't know, because I'm not on Facebook anymore, so I don't know when the video was.
Well, it was after Mark's actually rejoining me, because we spoke about adoption last year for one of my Fishing for the Truth videos, and you still had your hair then.
Well, the hair that I had.
Yeah.
So last year I decided to shade it off, basically.
Right.
And there were lots of reasons that I hadn't shaved it before then.
Okay.
But I expect we'll talk about that in more detail.
Yeah, and you didn't explore any other options, it was just either keep
Well,
what
I
you
sort
had
of thought
or
about it. I
shave.
kind of always had in my mind, even though I didn't like it and I felt kind of genuinely sad about it, I felt like my time and money would be better spent trying to like the way I looked rather than spending it trying to change the way I looked.
Yeah, interesting. And Tom, what about you?
So I've always had a lot of hair. Our family just have very, very thick hair, very curly, and we were doing a job, Christmas 2017, and I decided to go and get a haircut for the show, and they were just talking to me, they're like, what do you want? I said, oh yeah, maybe like a nice fade, and they were like, not too close, and then they showed me a mirror, and there was a massive patch missing from, I mean, it looked massive because it was a patch, it probably wasn't that big, but it was quite a big patch at the back, in a very irregular place, like the back of the head, and there was one here as well, but I had so much hair that I just hadn't noticed, I wasn't looking for it, so I didn't see it.
Right.
And they were like, it looks really common, are you stressed? And they were like, it looks like alopecia to us, we get it a lot. And so I put myself into a private consultation, and they were like, yeah, it's alopecia areata, which the general consensus, I mean, it's an autoimmune disease.
Right.
And they were like, it's 90% certain to grow back over time, but you need to address certain aspects of yourself. And they were saying it can be stress related, it can be grief related.
Okay.
I'd lost my mother about 2 years prior, and there was so much else to take care of. I'd kind of adopted this role of facilitating things, like maybe just not paying myself quite enough attention.
Right.
And I feel like it had maybe come to a head. I was working quite a lot over Christmas, and I think my body just went, I'm not happy, and it reacted. So And I did actually end up going to. I left it for a while and I shaved it down and I posted it up online. I don't post much online, really, but because within our company, we were a company of 10.
Yeah.
And there were 4 people, and not all men,
Right.
who'd had it. I put this post up and I was staggered by how incredibly common it is. I don't think it's commented on enough. I think it's more seen, especially because it's quite an image conscious industry. The slightest change.
The industry being, because we haven't explained to people.
Oh
the
yeah,
industry
sorry.
Being,
we're performers.
Yeah,
we work in the
actors,
performing arts, actors, musicians, singers, writers.
right.
Basically anything that
Entertainment.
warrants an aesthetic. I wanted to sort of be in control of it a little bit and map the progress of it myself. And I like having a shaved head, but I think when the choice is removed from you, it brings out a different impetus. Like I took it down to the skin because it's what I felt comfortable doing, but even just the act of doing that every day, and then the reactions that I got, I don't know whether it's because of ethnicity or face shape or
Okay.
just the way I walk, but I was regarded differently when I
In
had
what
it.
way?
A little more threatening.
Oh, okay, interesting.
I don't know. It made me look severe
That's interesting.
to people
Okay.
who didn't know me.
Right.
And I went to the Belgravia. My friend Jason Winter, who wouldn't even mind me saying because he's been a great ambassador for them. I saw him at audition. He was like, "You should just go and have a talk to them about it because if you know you buy your time to be there, they're not waiting for the next person, and they'll tell you exactly what's going on." And they said, "Yeah, it will eventually grow back. There's no guarantee it won't happen again. We can give you some tablets to speed up the process." And I was like, "Well, look, okay, I'm in a position where I can do that. Let's do it." So I'm grateful to them for their time. It came back about 4 months after that. So how much it was just going to do that anyway, and how much the tablets boosted that, I don't know. But I was grateful for the time and for the attention. I took up meditation actually at the time because I wasn't taking enough time to reflect on the day or
Right.
myself, which had a big difference overall anyway. It made me
Right.
feel better about myself. Cutting down on caffeine and sleeping. Apparently that's good for you. So I sort of started doing that, and yeah, it's kind of just it's given me a different relationship with my hair.
And with yourself, I would imagine, because all
Yeah.
those things that you've just mentioned that you did, meditation, looking after and taking care of yourself better.
Well, yeah, it's what- just
Changes.
taking a look at yourself and like having a softer view of yourself, just not being so hard on yourself, which sounds like a large thing to have taken from a relatively small incident, but to be taken out of your comfort zone, albeit temporarily at the moment, and then to see how other people view you and to see how you feel about yourself, and yeah, it had quite a snowballing effect on
Yeah.
on that.
There's a
and
big
how I
ripple
feel about
effect,
myself.
isn't there, I guess, from...
But I think it was healthy to tell people about it because the feedback was quite overwhelming at the time, actually.
Right.
The amount of people that.
Yeah, Mark was saying earlier, we'll talk about it in a while, about having some kind of control, taking back some control for yourself.
That's 100% how I felt in the last year, is that before it was something that was happening
Yeah.
to me that I did feel quite traumatised by. Less so in the last couple of years, but particularly initially. And now I don't at all.
Right.
So it's definitely achieved that. Shaving it has made me feel much more in control of it.
Yeah. So, talking of, you said you wanted to talk about it, and it was through Alan talking about it recently on Instagram and sharing your journey with it that sparked my interest and made me think, okay, this is something that we should probably, would be worthwhile discussing for the benefit of other people. So tell us about your experience, because it wasn't just a case of you shaving it, you went down some different roads, didn't you, to try and...
Yeah, I'm very similar to Mark, but the reason I started this sort of journey on Instagram is more of a my own project, my own internal project that I sort of felt I wanted to share, because I was always looking online and there's so much stuff, especially on Instagram, of men who want to work out, men and their diets, you know, ripped men and all of this stuff, and it's such an aesthetic image that doesn't fit actually the journey I've been on. And I sort of looked at it and thought, and I feel like I've, over the years, because I've tried everything, and I'll get to that, but I feel like I've been conned in a way, and I feel like I've been manipulated into this journey of negativity and negative self-worth.
What, by the media or social media?
By the media, social media, yes.
Okay.
And also the industry, but we'll get to that. So I thought, do you know what? I was chatting to my partner, and I thought, I need to pop some positivity into the net about being bald. And growing up, I had thick locks, and I had this massive fringe, and I was always doing something with it. And it wasn't until I got to drama school, and there's this photo of me, which it still gets put up, but it's this photo of me in a drama class and an acting class, and you see the back of my head, and it's the first photo that I went, this growing bald spot that was just here. And,
before your eyes.
Right, and it really is painful. And Mark, have you ever been in all of you, have you ever been in a changing room? You know, the all mirror changing room? And you just see yourself in 360, and it's terrifying.
It's always those, even if they've got like mirrors here, it's fine. But then they have there's like little corner mirrors.
Little corner ones that go, this is what you look like.
That's the worst.
You see yourself.
You never thought you'd see.
Angles that you never normally get to see, obviously.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not just one of you, you're right. It's like 50.
Hair loss
Getting
aside,
progressively
just staring
small.
at yourself from a different angle is like, oh my
Yeah,
god,
it's
that's me.
terrifying. Terrifying. So I had left drama school. When did I leave drama school? 19. Sort of, I had hair, and I was, I was ready to sort of, that beautiful naivety that you have when you graduate. I'm ready to conquer the world and be a leading man forever. And I went into my first job. It was a great tour, and the director, we were doing the bows, and the director said to me, as a side note, one-on-one, he said, darling, could you dye
I'm
your
about to get
hair?
really annoyed, aren't I?
Could you dye your hair black? And I said, it was already quite, it was quite dark brown anyway, and I said, why? He said, because darling, when you're bowing, the light's hitting you, and you can see how bald you are. And I did. I don't know why.
I don't know why that would help.
Oh.
It
Surely
does
it's just a
help
bigger
because it
contrast,
dyes your
maybe.
scalp.
Oh, okay. Oh my god.
So I did, and
Because you can get those sprays, right?
oh, I did it all. So I did that, we dyed it for a while, and then I'd go from job to job to job, and it was this one job, which was a brilliant job, but I was in and out of turbans. And so I'd go on like with a turban, I'd come off, and I'd come on as a woman, so I'd be in a sari and a headscarf, and having hair, I was so precious about the style it was in, and he'd always mess it up, and I'd be like, oh. And the director just said, just cut it down. So I did, that was the first time I cut it down to a 2. So it was shorter, and that was my first journey onto it. So we'll go into it later, but I pretty much did everything. I did the spray, main, I think it's called, so during a show, with the makeup, I'd spray in my hair to make it look thick. I took tablets, I went either low-level laser therapy, I went, I had this stuff I used to rub into my hair, peroxidil I think it's called.
Is that like a steroid cream or?
It's like a drip, it's like a steroid drip or something. I used to rub that into my scalp.
Rogaine, is that?
I did Rogaine.
How much do you think you spent?
Thousands for sure. And then we'll get back to it later, but then the final thing for me was going down Harley Street, and I had about 4 different consultations to have a hair transplant.
Different places.
Different places. Because I was very savvy about it, and I thought, right, I'm not just going to go to the first place I went to, and that was my first ever. Don't forget, I was still quite young. I was 24, and it was my first experience, I suppose, of hard selling, of being something. Everything was being forced on me, I'd been to 2 different ones. First one was so stressful because they literally were like, yeah, we can do it, ready to take my money. Second one was very positive that they could do it. Third one, this one she looked at the back of my head, she said, you just don't have enough donor area. The bald spot had gone that low that the donor area just wasn't, it just didn't have enough
spread it out.
plugs to be able to spread it out. So she said, I'm really sorry, you're just never going to be able to have one.
Was that weirdly freeing?
I left the building sobbing my heart out for loads of reasons. And I rang my agent, and she said, "Come and meet me right now." So I went and met her, and we went for a drink. She bought me a drink, and we just sat down, and I just cried. And it was partly because it was freeing, because I felt like I was at the ending and the beginning of a journey. And also, I was terrified of the industry.
Right.
Because, and I still think it needs to move forward, because especially musical theatre,
It mix your talent with your looks.
hair is aesthetic and hair is beauty, and these boys that you see,
Which is remarkable,
have
considering how
lots of
you
hair.
know the wig department of a show is so complex and so
Right.
advanced. They're so good at what they do.
But you need money to do that.
Of
And
course, yeah.
even then, you can get, in my opinion anyway, you get away with it in film being bald because they put wigs on everyone. But in musical theatre, it's not.
Yeah,
so
it is interesting because like every single girl will
well
be
wig.
wigged in
I
a
know,
show,
yeah.
irrelevant whether they need to be wigged or
Yeah,
not.
true.
And they won't wig any of. In most ensembles, you won't wig the boys.
No.
Yeah.
No.
No. So I sobbed and cried and cried and cried, and to be honest, I went into a state of depression for a while, and I was quite ill, and then she said to me, she went, "Alim, you're going to go to a barber's tomorrow, and you're going to get it shaved down to a 0, and we're going to get headshots."
I look after your talent, darling, not your hair.
And she was amazing, and I'll always be grateful for that. And I did it, and I've never looked back.
What about you, Sandy?
Well, I always had long hair. I went to one of those schools where you didn't have to get your hair cut, which was great. So it just grew and grew and grew and grew and
Right.
grew. And when I finished training, it was really long, and I was always known as the bloke with the lots and lots and lots of hair. And it was 1984, and I was on child number 2. Very sizable mortgage, fairly sort of busy life, and my father suddenly died, just out of the blue, completely unexpectedly. My mother went to make a cup of tea, she came back up with a cup of tea, and he was gone, 63, massive heart attack, and we were all just completely shocked. You know, I mean, it's bad enough when somebody dies when you know they're going to go, but when they just out like a light, I mean, she could hardly tell us, she was just so shocked. And obviously that must have had an effect, so I noticed a bit of hair on my pillow, and I sort of ignored it. And then my sister, who was talking to me when we were down at my father's funeral, ran her hands through my hair. She was saying something, whatever. She came away and there was a whole handful of hair. And she said, "Do you know about this?" And I went, "Bloody hell." So I did the same thing, and literally it was coming out in handfuls. And within about, maybe a bit like you, Tom, within about, I suppose, a week, I had a massive big patch, and growing, and then I had another one, and I'd noticed, which I hadn't noticed before, I had tons of hair, half my eyebrow had gone, my left eyebrow, and then I could wipe my hand across my eyebrows, and they would come out as well, and it was kind of galloping. So I wondered whether or not it had been shock or something, and that then went on for about 4 months, and progressively I cut my hair shorter and shorter and shorter. Of course, as you cut your hair shorter, the patches became more apparent.
Right.
And finally I decided I would shave my head completely. And so I went to a trichologist who said, "You have alopecia." Right. And I said, "Oh, will it grow back?" And they said, "Well, in some cases."
Okay.
So at that point I thought, well, I wonder whether or not if I shave my head, at least I'll see which bits in some cases are going to grow back. So I then shaved my head completely. And as it happened at the time, I also began to suffer from quite a chronic disc problem.
Okay.
Because for 3 years or so, my wife and I had an adagio act, which we used to take around Europe. It literally, she didn't touch the ground for 4 minutes. It was one of these acrobatic adagio acts, and I wondered whether or not I'd really screwed up my back. And a couple of people said, "Oh, well, this could be because of your sciatica. It's hitting a nerve that is making your hair fall out." And other people said, "No, this is shock." And I was getting all kinds of conflicting advice. And of course, every time you had to go somewhere, you had to go to a professional. As I say, you couldn't look up Dr. Google or get any information otherwise. And I suppose I must have got to about a year in, it was about 1985, and it had all gone completely. We had, I think it was a christening party, and we invited a whole load of chums around, and some of them hadn't seen me for a long time. And the weirdest thing happened, because a very outspoken, outrageous friend of ours came to the front door, and I opened the front door, and he said, "What happened to all your lovely hair? What a dick you are! How could you have shaved your head? You were much better with hair and all this stuff. What possessed you?" And he's rubbing his... And I said, "Well, actually, I've lost it." He was mortified.
Oh,
And
gosh.
he then said, "Oh, right, wait a minute." And he stood there and he went, "Nom, nom, 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 nom." And about the following day, I suddenly saw that I was getting eyebrows again. And it was really weird. And I was working in I was between jobs because I couldn't dance because my back was so bad. So I got a job at Pineapple, helping mum with the pineapples. And this guy came in one day and he said, "Do you know about aloe vera?" And I went, "No." And he said, "Oh, it's miraculous." He said, for bald people, it's absolutely stunning. I mean, it has fantastic effects. And he said, "Tell you what, I'll leave you one of my aloe vera plants, and what you do is you cut an inch off every day, and you cut it down the middle, and you rub it all over your head, and it'll grow." And so I did, religiously, for about 6 months. And, I mean, coincidentally, my hair started to grow back in.
Right.
It came back completely without any pigmentation at all, until eventually I had this kind of marble cake all across my head.
Right.
But all the hair grew back. But I had one white eyebrow and one dark eyebrow. I had one big white patch here, and I had sort of more or less the same colour. And the other thing was I always had very curly hair. It had a real kind of kink to it. And it came back, and as it grew out, it grew straight.
Right.
So there must have been some really kind of weird neurological thing that happened. And I suppose I had marble hair, white and black, white and brown hair for about 3 years. And then gradually each one of these white patches got the pigmentation back.
Right.
And I massaged my head every single day religiously with the aloe vera. I must have done it for about 3 years.
Right.
You know. Then it grew back completely, and the colour came back, and it's kind of stayed that way to the point where, you know, it's just beginning to lose its pigmentation again, but I think that's just age.
Right.
Especially with male pattern baldness, the reason hair gets... See, I feel like I've learned so much from my process, is that there's something called DHT. I won't try and say it because it's such a long word. It's on my Instagram, you can have a look. It's a byproduct of testosterone.
Yeah.
And it's a horrible thing. It's a good thing, but it's also a horrible thing because it runs around the body and it just attacks the hair follicle, and it just attacks and attacks and attacks. And if you think of it like a little bulb, and it just dies and dies and dies and dies and dies to the point in which it's completely exterminated. And you cannot, the second it's exterminated, you cannot get it back.
Yeah.
So when you, for male pattern baldness, you've got to try and do two things. You've got to try and reduce the DHT and the testosterone to stop it attacking so much, but also then try and bring life back to that bulb that's been attacked for so long.
Yeah.
But normally, by that point you get to actually getting consultation, the bulbs, a lot of them are dead.
Yeah.
I don't know how. Maybe I don't know about alopecia.
Well, what was
it?
it? I don't know what was explained to you that basically alopecia of different kinds. There's alopecia areata, which is what I have, which is the patch.
Yeah.
Alopecia totalis, which is the whole
shebang.
caboodle.
Yeah.
Is that it's an autoimmune condition.
Yeah.
So basically, what the very cells that protect you are a bit confused, and they start attacking your follicle. They've got the good follicles. I don't think now this may be incorrect, but depending on the different conditions, but I don't think they don't wipe them out entirely, as in the process of hair growth is still possible. They just hold them back at completely random ways.
Yeah, unless you have a sort of autoimmune related disorder like diabetes, or some people are obviously more susceptible to it.
But yeah,
DHT is the cause of some hair loss, and this random behaviour of cellular behaviour is
your body just like going. Just
Yeah.
like, you know,
Well,
like
it must
old
be,
telephone
yeah.
wires. Like,
I mean, what's really
they're just
sad
in the
is
wrong.
I'm getting hair in all sorts of places that I don't want it, like
Yeah.
my nose.
And your ears. Well, that's age.
So true. Thousands of places.
Welcome to my world.
Chopping away. The older you get, they just start coming.
No,
through.
it's like, I'll attack some of those hair.
Let me just transfer.
That's a really good point, though. Why doesn't it ever attack those hairs?
But question for all of you. One of the reasons I did the Instagram thing was because, and one of the reasons I struggled so much with my process, and one of the reasons I was so desperate to get it back, is because I felt everywhere I turned, I was always the butt of the joke. I was either getting my head rubbed by someone, like a little noggin. Someone would take them. They'd say a joke and then refer to me. People would always point it out. I still feel there's this negative connotation with baldness,
There is.
Well, I was saying
especially
to-
for men.
Yeah,
I was saying to
Mark.
Nia earlier that I think that there is an expectation that you're going to treat it with, like, lightly.
There's an expectation that you're going to be that character.
Yeah, that you're going to be. You know, I think it's the same, and I was saying I think it's more of a guy thing than a girl thing, because I think like if you're like an overweight guy, you get the same thing. Amongst men, there's kind of an expectation that you're going to take a fat joke, or you're going to take a bold joke, or you're going to be happy about it. I don't think women would do that to each other. As
No,
well.
I don't think so.
Well, you're more
generally
equitable.
But it's funny because I feel less like a bald person now that I have shaved my head than I felt
I agree.
Is that
like
the
I
agency
did
pushing in control?
before.
Right.
When I was losing my hair, because it was, you know, it was really bad here and all of here, and it was really thin, and I used to try and do something with it. And the other thing that I, you know, used to get quite a lot is, because of, you know, acting, you would, when you're put in a wig, so often people would go, "Oh my God, you look beautiful."
Oh gosh.
Oh yes, as if
All
Like,
the
I
time.
didn't realise you were so handsome. I'm like, this is what I look like. I just don't have this wig on. This is the reaction I would get if I had hair.
Yeah.
And this is what I don't have.
I think it's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
Because I went to Thailand,
Right.
and I went to Thailand, and I never forget it. I was on an island, you know, I was island hopping. I was travelling by myself, and these group of Asians, I can't pinpoint where they were from, but they were definitely East Asians, and they were also travelling in Thailand, and they came up to me, and they asked if they could rub my head, and I literally was like, I got my back up because I'm so used to people taking the mick out of me, so I was like, whoa, but they saw it as and I got chatting to them, and they were like, no, it's good luck, and I thought, oh my God. They saw me in a positive light, and, you know, maybe a little bit too extreme the other way. It's like,
I mean, that'd be a busy.
Because everyone rubbing my head,
That'd be a busy
walking
day in
down the
Shepherd's
market.
Bush. That's how we
Right,
probably.
can you imagine? But I think it's a cultural thing. I
Yeah.
think over here there is this shame, and there is this we mock people.
bad
that are
hair day.
different.
I mean, what's that
Right.
about?
What is
That's
that
a good
about?
point. Yeah. All the
You know.
subliminal messages that get sent through
Absolutely.
images
But
and
also Hollywood,
advertising
you know,
and
I
film.
don't know how you guys feel, but I remember watching. It's really hard for me to watch films and see beautiful people with hair. It's so rare that you see someone that's boldly celebrated.
Right.
There's this famous Patrick Stewart,
Mhm.
obviously, you know, very famous bald guy. I don't know if you know the story about when he was in for Star Trek. He went in and they put him in a wig, and he said no. And there was a whole conversation about that. I don't remember the story 100%, so don't correct me on that. But there is something around that. And he ended up being the bald captain, and it was like, and I mean,
And he's got perfect shape hair.
he's got perfect shape, and he was one of the first people to sort of celebrate it. And I suppose you can in Star Trek, because Star Trek celebrates. I find it celebrates everything and everyone.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, that's true.
But he was like, no, because well, that was it. He said because in the year so and so, baldness won't matter.
No.
And that is why they went, all right then, and he didn't have. They took the wig off.
How you frame associations too. I mean, I remember around about the early 80s when I was a dancer, I used to be interested in contemporary dance. Michael Clark Company really started making waves. Lloyd Newson really started making waves. Butoh was the first time the big Butoh company came over, and they went to Riverside, and I went to see it. All absolutely, completely shaven heads.
Right.
Michael was famous for shaving his heads. The girls shaved their heads as well in the Michael Clark company. Lloyd Newson obviously was and I associated really interesting dance making with people with no hair.
Okay.
Absolutely, you know, so I was which is, I guess when I shaved my head I was completely comfortable because I thought, well, at least I look like a contemporary dancer. You know, I mean, it was weird, but so it's all about association, isn't it?
But I have
like associating Buddha or something.
Yeah,
you
maybe,
know?
and I think
Weird.
I think it's the same. It's very comparable to mental health. You know how we're in a movement at the moment to try and encourage men to talk about their mental health, because for years we've been conditioned.
They've been jumping off railway bridges instead, yeah. Absolutely.
And not talking about it, and men don't cry. And I think it's exactly the same thing. I think men have been conditioned to be ashamed of losing their hair, to not talk about being bald, on whatever you are on the spectrum. And I think that there needs to be a positive conversation, and there is a thirst for it. And seeing it online already, just posting these little things, you can see there's a thirst.
It's interesting, my TV castings and my commercial castings have increased a lot since I've had this.
Yeah.
My MT castings,
Near enough.
almost completely
I'm
gone.
on exactly the same journey.
Your headshots are as you are now.
Yeah.
But what is it? Do you think some people just don't have imagination?
I think that's part of the problem.
Why do we have to spoon
in the same way as they
feed
say
them?
these
Absolutely.
ridiculous and thoughtless things.
You absolutely do.
But I just don't think it's broadened out to the industry yet. I think the industry's got a lot of, you know, little. It's a bit slow in its development of you know.
Mankind writ large, though, isn't it?
There is a,
Yeah.
particularly in theatre, there is a, and musical particularly, there is a youth thing. There's a need for youth, and I think that because more older people are bald than younger people, there is a thing that implies aging. There's a thing that I would say. So why I feel better now I've shaved it than I did when it was kind of falling out is because there was something about it that felt decaying. You know, it felt crumbling. It
But
felt
also-
like an old, like a building falling down. That's how I felt about my hair.
I've got
Back to the
a
plot.
slightly different question to ask you all, still related, but in my experience with my life, I went through a phase where my body could be perceived to have failed me. So something I thought my body was going to be able to do, in my case, have children, my body couldn't do it. And I know for me, once something happens within you that isn't what you thought it was going to be, it's not just about that, but it also made me really look at who I was and how I felt about myself. And it made me question lots of different layers about how I felt about me. So did that happen at all with you guys in any way? Did your experience with this subject make you look closer at your relationship with yourself?
Right. The weird thing about when it happened was, if I hadn't have been in a rehearsal with lovely people and had a very supportive girlfriend at the time and wonderful family and people and clients that were great, if it had happened in Shropshire on my own and I hadn't told anyone for a few weeks, I think I'd have gone down a bit of a spiral.
Scary.
I could have, well, was I alone at the time, developed a bit of contention with my body maybe, or how I felt about it, but I was forced into just embracing it on the day,
Right.
like literally on the day. It got harder when I spent some time on my own afterwards, like after Christmas and that, but
Because
no,
it can massively affect people's self-esteem.
yes,
Did
yeah.
you have a
Then
gradual thing? Did you have a gradual series of diagnoses, or was it literally?
No, it was.
Nia, we got to tell you this.
It was
You have
lots
conditions.
of tests because they weren't sure, and then it was early menopause.
Right. At which
And-
point you had to process it with a whole load of other people, or
No, just me.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
We are all so different, and we are all not on one path. And actually, there is nothing you can do. Your body is going to do it. At the moment, I've had some personal things going on with my body that sort of made me, very similarly with the baldness, go, there is nothing I can do to stop this. This is
Right.
completely natural. It's normal.
Happens a lot.
It happens a lot. I'm going to embrace it, and I'm going to go and do it. However, I think you have to be in the right
Environment.
mental state, environment, and supportive community to be able to go on that journey, because I don't think social media helps it.
Right.
No, one thing I tried to do when it happened, because I tried to remember all the things my body has done for me, which sounds really strange, but like there are so many things on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis that it's fought off. That to now sort of to start hating it for this one thing, I've tried to sort of maintain a balance to all the things it has done for me.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the big shock, I think, for me was suddenly you were faced with mortality for the first time in your life. You're never going to die, and it's all going to be wonderful. And, oh, well, you know, I mean, because children don't make you, having children doesn't make you think your life is going to come to an end, that all things are added, and it's all wonderful, and then suddenly, wham, your hair's falling out, or you're faced with something as big as you have, and you think, Jesus, I'm going to die. Eventually, one day.
And you
you're
realise
faced
how
with that.
little you are in the grand
I
scheme
think
of
maybe
it.
that's one of the things that you then have to process in a
Okay.
big way, and all these other things attached to it.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I just think we don't necessarily realise how much we identify ourselves with how we look or what we're capable of, or
Yeah.
and then sometimes when one of those elements is kind of taken away and you lose control of that, you sometimes are forced in, well, in my case anyway, it forced me to look a little bit deeper than
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I think I
that.
just felt because it was so slow. It was such a slow. You know, for me, it wasn't a sudden. I mean, there was the moment that I realised it was happening, but it then progressed over a number of years. It just made me feel unattractive. I mean, it made me feel sad. And that does chip away at your self-confidence. You know, I would be in, particularly when you're in an industry, I'd be in casts with very beautiful people, fit, healthy people, and I wouldn't want to go out, I wouldn't want to go on an evening out with them, because I wouldn't want to feel unattractive. I wouldn't want to...
Inferior.
It's almost like I didn't feel attractive, so I think I didn't feel like I didn't deserve other people to feel like I was attractive. So I would be the funny person, or I would be the clever person, or I'd play one of the other roles. I don't think I've ever had anyone say anything negative about it, actually. Like, I do feel like it's out there, the idea that being bald is unattractive.
But my question is, why is it fine-tuned in our heads that it is unattractive and it is unacceptable? And going back to what you're saying, Nia, I'm on my journey here right now, where I'm asking myself, I don't know what's worse, getting told straight away and having that impact, or it going gradually and having to accept it. And I'm tempted to say it's better to get the instant trauma. You very quickly go, okay, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? And you very quickly learn to adapt.
right.
I'm not saying it makes it easier, but
You address it.
Yeah, you have to. You have to address
Triggers
it.
your coping skills.
Yes,
That's-
it does. It's the survival skills.
Okay. that's
Where I
interesting.
feel the long-term thing, when you see it every day and you see it getting worse and worse, and you can see that,
It's a
you can see
pending
that
dread.
darkness at the end of the tunnel, not the
Right.
light.
Yeah.
And you're trying to step away from it, and there's nothing you can do, and you're just on a moving train. That is sometimes more terrifying, I think,
Right.
because
I think sometimes the time spent worrying over something over a long period of time is more harrowing and affecting than the thing itself.
It felt quite consuming.
Right.
right, it does, doesn't it? And you feel
Yeah.
exhausted.
And is that your
Yeah.
own internal dialogue about it? Is that
Well, I think
the
it
conversation and the story you tell yourself?
I think it must be, because like I said, it was never said to me. So I
Right.
think it is, it's all about perception of yourself and self-worth, and it does feel exhausting.
It's interesting to me. I mean, you mentioned meditation earlier. For lots of people, it can be, not everybody, but for lots of people, it can be a very traumatic
It was actually
thing.
suggested to me by a doctor, which I thought was odd. Not odd, but...
So what are the different ways that people can explore looking after themselves? I mean, we've discussed grief and shock here as some of the, and stress, some of the factors. And I'm always a firm believer that your body will manifest in some way eventually whatever it is that you are
100%.
either thinking or feeling, or
100%.
sooner or later it goes, enough,
I don't think...
until you kind of sit up and take notice,
I don't think we fully even comprehend now how linked your mindset and the physical effects of that are.
And I think we're getting there.
Well, they've started to do neuroscience. They've started to realise that it isn't just. I think it's almost, people often have thought that it's your brain that controls your body, and that actually it's a circle. It's a two-way thing. So when you feel anxious, do you feel anxious and then get butterflies in your stomach, or do you get butterflies in your stomach which make you realise that you're anxious? So it's this constant two-way thing.
But we'll just like that as a cycle from the physical to the cerebral and back. Like the doctor said to me, I got what's that app that everyone uses?
Calm.
Headspace.
Headspace. Very popular.
I'm generally quite aware of myself. I know what I like about myself and what I don't. I know, energy reserves. I'm pretty good at like bouncing myself out. However, the one thing that I never really do is sit and think about what has happened, what is going to happen. Like, as in, how did today make me feel? What's my blood pressure? How can I bring myself back to zero? And they said that's a really important thing to do. I used to do it in the mornings. I found it more beneficial in the mornings than at night. Just to regulate yourself a little bit. Just check in with yourself, which I didn't find myself doing so much. I was just like all the time. I'm perfectly fine with it until the body was like, wait, I don't think we're fine with this. And then sort of like just taking stock and just like thinking about myself, thinking about what I'd done that day, thinking about what I needed to do, just like bringing everything in.
Everything that grows needs a period of rest, doesn't it? In order to reboot, be it nature, be it human beings. It's a cycle, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
But rest is so important, be it mentally, physically,
I think there are certain things that are out of our control. They're inevitable. But I do think
genetic factors being one.
Because I think that's one of the things that kind of always irritates me a little bit about the hair loss thing. Is there is an implication in it that you're not looking after yourself properly. Like you're losing your hair, so you're not eating well, or you're not getting enough sleep, or you're not. Well, maybe if you did this, it wouldn't be falling out. Or maybe if you did this, or maybe if you were eating more omega, or maybe and that there's something about that really irritates me because I'm like, well, actually, maybe it's just falling out.
And the other answer, of course, is that maybe if you had more testosterone, mate, you would have less hair.
So I think that there is a kind of absolutely. I hate that implication that there is something about it that is intrinsically
something wrong.
Or something.
But I do think, going back to what you were saying, Nia, I think there are things that are completely out of our control, but also secondly, there are things that are in our control, and I think your body does get to a point where it says stop. And it goes into self-preservation mode. And I do think taking our baldness as an example, if I allowed myself to be engulfed in that stress and that depression, what would happen as a result of that? And then it goes back to the meditation and going, okay, how do I cope with this? Because I do think you can cause other issues.
Well, that's the thing. That's how my body was manifesting its stress at the time. There could have been
I wasn't implying
countless other ways.
Baldness that happens and you can't do anything about it. I wasn't implying that is something that your body manifests.
But I mean, listening to my daily stress, they were like listening to my lifestyle and my mentality, and they were like, I just think this would be good for you in general. Like regardless of what happens with this,
well, a lot of doctors are now
you need to calm yourself down a little bit.
A lot of doctors are being encouraged to go down the homeopathic route, and because at the moment there's this big conversation I was reading the other day about how doctors have been accused of literally over prescribing antidepressants. But now they're being encouraged to go, okay, what about the homeopathic route? Because I do think we need to listen to our bodies, we need to be kinder to our bodies, we need to understand our bodies, and actually a lot of things, if we go back, there's things that obviously medical science will be able to help with, but there are things that were done thousands of years ago that have always been natural remedies that have helped our bodies. And I think we need to go
meditation
back to
being
that
one of
time.
them.
And I still work the same hours I did then. My mentality is different.
Okay. And that's something you have a choice over, isn't it?
You can
whatever happens, you can choose how you
can throw yourself in a car for 12 hours and then run to a rehearsal and then write 3 shows in a hostel. But if you let your brain get the better of you, and you're like 5 stages behind yourself and you're clawing to keep up with yourself, you've got a problem.
And that was one of the most freeing things about shaving my hair off the day after I met my agent, and why I left that clinic bawling my eyes out is because for the first time I sort of went, oh, I can breathe. I'm not constantly beating myself and constantly in this state of stress, trying to desperately find a remedy. I was actually just going.
And I think that's why I made the choice to not do all those things.
Yes.
Yeah. But I agree. The minute I decided to shave it was because I think that I think the other thing that really helped was for me was admitting to myself and to other people that the experience was traumatic.
Yeah.
Because I think that
Yeah.
there are different people have different experiences, and there are different types of trauma in your life, right? I am not saying that my experience of hair loss is the same as someone else's experience of losing a loved one, or someone else's experience of having cancer, or someone else. You know, obviously there are degrees of trauma, but I think sometimes when it's something that potentially on the grand scale of things feels insignificant, like hair loss, really, you know, nobody's dying, nobody's lost someone, you know, it's not, it feels like it shouldn't be a big thing, right? But it is. It is a big thing.
Well,
and
that's
I think
an conflict.
yeah, absolutely. But I think it's given me more empathy, and it's given me more understanding of other people, because I've gone, actually, do you know what, this has scarred me, it has had an effect on me, and I'm allowed to own that without taking away anything from the trauma you've experienced.
Well, I feel like we always have to assign strength to everything as well, rather than just vulnerability. Like the post has to be strong. It has to be seen as like being, like feeling like you can't just say I feel
empowering.
awful.
Yeah.
Like,
And yet
this
there is
felt
strength
awful.
in vulnerability,
Yeah.
in being honest and saying this is how I feel.
Yeah.
We only know our own experience, and if something for you feels traumatic,
You can
it's
express
traumatic
it.
because it's traumatic for you.
I really, really hope that one day, and one of the reasons I'm so passionate about just talking about, so one of the reasons I love this is the fact that I do think we need to talk about it more, and it needs to. I really hope that one day, people who experience hair loss won't have.
Did you say head loss? That's pretty extreme, yeah.
Hair loss don't have as much of a traumatic experience. I truly hope that one day people can just go, okay, I'm losing my hair, and it won't matter, like Patrick Stewart said, in the future.
Yeah, one day we'll evolve and we'll just have giant thumbs and no hair anyway, because we don't need hair, but we do need big thumbs for running our lives. You know, so you're more evolved. Sorry, darling.
We are the future.
I am the future.
Oh dear me.
I really hope if there's anyone watching who is thinking about shaving their head, who you know, is scared about doing it, and doesn't know if they should, you should. You should do
I
it.
agree.
100%.
Yeah.
But also, don't be scared, because I don't want to create this culture of not going down the treatment routes. Like, if you go down the treatment route, great, fine. But I think it's really important to understand what it's like on the flip side, because by going down the treatment routes, you do find yourself sometimes falling into a desperation trap,
Down a rabbit hole.
where you're going, you're gasping for air. Someone save me. Someone heal me. When actually, it's like sometimes.
But I
shave
think that
it off
there's no
and see
reason
how
why
you
you
feel.
can't shave it off and pursue those
Exactly.
treatments.
Shave
I
it
just
and
know
see-
that
yeah.
for me, shaving it was so empowering. It felt like taking back control and owning the situation. And I really and I was scared of doing that for so long, because I didn't know that it would have that effect. And I'd heard people say it, so I'm going to say it, that taking back control is amazing. It's the best,
great.
it's the
Taking back
best thing.
control
That's
also.
why I
I mean, like the guy who said to me, what did you shave your head for, you stupid person? And actually, looking back now, it was kind of empowering, but only after the event, because suddenly you realise that people judge you on how they saw you and not on who you were.
And you are
It's
more
like,
than your hair.
I am more than my head, you know.
As
And all
Lady
those people-
Gaga once said.
Well, all those people's opinions shifted after a week anyway. Like, if they were shocked, they'd be like, oh, actually, it does.
Yeah.
So there is an adjustment period. I just think socially that's a
But then you're
longer
into the
adjustment
backhanded
period.
compliments thing.
But it is. I think I agree with you. It's about taking control back, and whether that is going down the treatment route or shaving your hair. But I do think sometimes going, right, I'm going to shave it because I'm going to control this. I'm not going to let this control me.
I hardly ever look in the mirror now.
Yeah, me neither.
You don't
I
need to,
love
you don't
it.
feel the need
No,
to.
I have no need to. I think
That must be
I'm
freeing.
sure I look fine.
Yeah.
Like I don't.
To be fair,
it
like-
sounds really arrogant, but
No.
I'm sure it's fine. Like,
when
I'm sure,
when I had it
it's just not
shaved,
consuming.
my mornings was so much easier.
Yeah.
I just throw on what I felt like wearing. I didn't even need to check the hair. I'd be like, yeah, it looks fine, and then leave, and I
you
just
leave
feel
it.
good for the day.
You know, there's something freeing about that.
Yeah.
Do you think that freedom and that taking back of control, does that actually start with the action, or does it start with your choice?
I just got to the point where I was like, I've had enough now.
Right.
Like I'm done. I'm tired and I'm done.
And it's that you're exhausted at the end of that
Yeah.
journey. So I'm tempted to say, Nia, shave it. Just shave it, no matter where you are on the journey,
Right.
whether you're starting it or whether you're at the end. Just shave it, because you can because if you shave it right at the end,
Give
you're going
yourself
to be
that option.
battered and bruised and exhausted.
Yeah.
You're going to have low confidence.
What,
But if you
yeah,
do it at the
because
beginning,
it started when I was 23
you
and
know.
I'm 37 nearly, and
Right.
I was tired.
Because like you said, you can still, if treatment does end up being your route, I still got my treatment while it was shaved.
Exactly.
But for my own mindset, for feeling
Right.
good about myself every day, shaving it was right. It's like you said, give yourself the option early.
And I've had
Because
so
then-
many compliments about my eyes.
One of my friends, actually, who I didn't know was experiencing baldness, had WhatsApped me after he saw me popping stuff on Instagram. They said, I'm really enjoying your posts, mate. I've been struggling with myself. And I said, oh, I had no idea you were going through it. And he said, yeah, I think I'm going to shave it. And I went, great, good for you. And he
I
went,
had a couple off.
and he
I
went,
made,
yeah. And he said, I might go to Belgravia or a few other places. He said, but I'm going to shave it and I'm going to see how I feel. And I was like, great. And I think that's the position you should be in.
Right.
Shave it first, because you might go, gosh, I love this,
Yeah.
and save yourself thousands of pounds.
Yeah.
Or you might shave it and go, I'm going to check out my options, which is
Yeah.
equally fun.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say that I regret not shaving it, because all the things I did I really liked doing, like work-wise, and maybe they wouldn't have happened if I'd shaved it. But I think for my personal trauma and exhaustion, I wish I'd done it sooner. But I mean, I don't regret not doing it. I'm glad I've done it now. But
Yeah.
I think if you are at the point where you're really thinking about doing it, do it.
Don't let yourself go on that journey. It's so painful.
Time.
It's massive, isn't it? This subject isn't just about hair
No.
by
That's
any means.
society.
That's the tip of the iceberg, and then there's
I love the fact that you did shave it, Tom, because you embraced it. You took back control. You could have spent ages covering it, which I'm sure you
Well,
probably
the
might
first few weeks, I mean, doctors had talked at me and things, but like I didn't really know what was going to happen, because you know, it's all well and good me sitting here now, like a year later, going, yeah, it grew back.
Yeah,
But at the time, I was
yeah.
like, I'm not going to dick around with this. I'm just
Yeah.
going to, do you know what I mean?
You don't know whether
Some
it's gonna
days
work.
it was a bit more, you know, affecting than others, and but most days, other people aside, society aside, I felt really good. I felt fine because I'd made a choice.
Yeah, but it's still a brave choice, you know.
Very, very true. There are days, you know, those ugly days when you wake up, you feel a bit, vulnerable, your confidence is a bit low, and I'll look in the mirror and I'll self-compare, especially on social media, and I'll feel awful about not having hair. But I think that is because I've been conditioned, because by society, and also because of the trauma I have gone through.
Right.
If I'd have shaved it earlier on, I wonder whether I'd have as much emotional scarring now.
For me to be more bothered about something else other
That's
than
the
my
thing,
hair.
I still
Yeah.
self-compare.
Yeah.
I still self-compare online.
Yeah.
I try not to too often. But if I didn't have my hair, I would probably self-compare that. I have it for now, so I'm self-comparing something else.
there is always there's always something if you go there to compare about.
Mm.
I think we should
Strong
acknowledge
personal thought.
that there are women that are going through it as well.
100%.
Because
Absolutely.
like, there are
Yes.
poor
So
guys here.
obvious.
Because
It's harder
actually,
for
but
women,
I
I
think
imagine.
and I think that it happens to guys more guys lose their hair, particularly obviously male pattern baldness.
Well, half of men by the time they reach their 50s will
Really?
be affected by male pattern.
Yeah.
Which is why we're four guys talking about it.
A lot of
but I
girls
think
talk
that
to
there
me
are a
about
lot
this
of
when I
women.
got it.
You know, there are a lot of the women who I think it must be more. I think it must be worse actually for a woman.
Yes, I can't speak for women, but I imagine there's more of a support network, it seems, for women. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I know my mum had some experience with alopecia, but the reason for today that I was choosing just men is because I'm not sure that men are as good at talking and being
anything.
open about stuff as women are.
Yeah.
Women love a good natter, you know. Maybe at some point in the future I'll sit down and have this conversation with women as well.
Yeah.
But gosh, well, I just think as with any of my videos that I've done, I think it's good to talk about stuff. I think there are support groups out there for anybody who does find or is going through this and finds it traumatic. I'll make sure I post any useful links on the video description at the bottom. Oh, thank you everybody.
No, that was cool.
Yeah.
This was, God, we talked some, haven't we?
Look at it.
Yeah,
I
mine
feel like
was
we like having
didn't
this
send
kind
me
of
the
service like the
Yeah.
industry as well, like casting things and stuff like that.
Oh, thank you so much.